Leap of faith! How does his hat stay on? So, welcome back. Just essentially going to be traveling around, messing around as Jacob. I normally play as Evie. While I do this video, which is going to kind of, cover the last few weeks of my life and really what it's taught me. And it's going to delve into certain politics of the situation, which I don't normally cover politics because they tend to be very divisive when you do it, and, you know, everyone's politics are personal to them. But thought I'd cover this because the last few weeks I've been kind of made aware of the reason why I'm independent in politics, why I'm not Republican nor Democrat. So, we'll get into that. So, first off, I'm going to mention this because it's just kind of interesting. It has nothing to do with politics or really anything else. As an early Valentine's Day present from my mother, she sent me a weighted blanket. Now, these are supposed to be kind of a comfort thing, kind of like how, you know, the more secure you make a baby, the better they sleep. This is supposed to kind of help adults get that same sort of security and sleep better and all that other fun stuff. But an interesting little side note for me, I tend to toss and turn in my sleep. And interestingly enough, with the weighted blanket, I have personally discovered that while I woke up, I was super sore, like muscular workout sore. And near as I can figure, because the blanket was weighted, and I normally toss and turn a lot, I pretty much got a really good workout in my sleep. So, gonna keep that up and see how well it goes. What I figure will eventually happen is that either I will get into much better shape and will be constantly, you know, working out throughout the night, or what'll probably happen at some point or another, I'll eventually just be too tired to work out and just fall asleep immediately without any sort of tossing and turning. So, just kind of a fun little side note there. So, getting back to this entire thing on politics and whatnot. So, to let people know, in case you're watching this in the far-flung future, this is being recorded in February of 2020. So, you can look back at kind of the politics that have happened. And I will discuss that later, but the thing that kind of started me onto this pathway of thinking, so this is why I've always been independent, was a conversation I had on Twitter. Which, yeah, most people say is always a mistake, but you does what you gots to does. Anyway, there's a guy I had followed on Twitter who makes a lot of videos on YouTube that are video game videos. That's why I followed him. He's British, which makes a difference to this particular conversation. But yeah, when I started following him, I was a bit disappointed that the vast majority of his views, or what he posted on Twitter, were political commentary, and, you know, he's quite a liberal person, so of course the political commentary is quite liberal there. It was a little disappointing because, you know, it's you went to it for the reason of, you know, video games and stuff like that, and then you get vast majority of what you get out of this guy is politics. And which is one of the reasons why in most of my videos I don't discuss politics. I know people don't necessarily come to it for politics. Although, yeah, in fairness, there's a great deal of philosophy in politics. Anyway, I'm getting off point. So, this guy had shown himself to be very pro, or anti, I should say, very, very important distinction there, anti-Brexit, which is the Britain exiting the European Union. He was against that. Now, my views on it are quite simple and straightforward. I really don't care. It doesn't affect me directly. It has an indirect effect, yes, because it's, something that my country has something to do. But ultimately, I'm an American, and I trust that people in the UK can figure it out for themselves and eventually make their own decision regarding it, one way or the other. It's those were my feelings on it, and pretty much stuck to those feelings. I shouldn't be running on the track, should I? Let me get up here. So, and honestly, I'd heard good arguments from both sides. So, really, it's just one of those things where you're like, meh. Okay, Brexit. Yeah, who cares? So that was pretty much my view, but so he had made a comment about it wasn't even really about Brexit. It was about somebody who was in favor of Brexit. So apparently somebody had made the comment that if the people, now that Brexit has passed and UK is leaving the European Union, he had made somebody had made a comment about, well, if you don't like it, you can just pack up and leave. Now, this comment, my initial response to this comment is pretty straightforward. It's like, pretty much my entire life I've heard comments similar, including in politics. It's like, if you don't like this, you can leave. I've had teachers tell me that at school. If you don't like this, you can go to the principal's office. If you don't like this, you can just, leave, or just not be a member of this group or this thing. And so it didn't really have that big of an impact on me. However, this guy was insensate about it. He was upset over this comment. And the gist of his argument and reason for being upset was, well, it's now much harder to leave England now because, we're not in the European Union anymore. Now, this struck me as kind of funny, actually. For one thing, this guy will, because of work, a few times a year will actually leave the UK, so might be a little easier for him than he's letting on. And like I said, it didn't seem to be too much, but I sent a response to him, basically saying, wait a second. It's been made very, very difficult for people who are in favor of Brexit to get Brexit going. You've had votes about the same things. There's just a lot of, red tape, paperwork, government type stuff going on with people who are in favor of Brexit. So it seems a little, silly to be complaining about it. And I got several responses not from him, but from people who follow him, which happens a lot if you're not on Twitter. Essentially, not arguing my point about, the possible hypocrisy of him complaining about it being made difficult when he was part of a group that made it difficult for people who were in favor. Anyway, it makes sense in my head. Anyway, nobody called me out on that and said, oh, nope, you're wrong. This is a different situation, and this is why. If they had, I would have been like, okay, I may not fully understand the situation, and I could be wrong. I could be comparing apples to oranges, and just because I don't know the situation fully. Nobody called me out on it. Nobody said, nope, you're wrong because of this. They basically just argued their position for Brexit, or against Brexit, I should say, which, as I said before, I have no opinion on. Because of that. So, it's just one of those situations where people would argue with me, but not about what the point I was making, but about something completely different. Which is always kind of fun on Twitter, truthfully, when people do that. But, anyway, after a few people had argued and I'd answered that, no, I'm talking about this specifically, not about Brexit itself, but just this kind of attitude. The guy who I'd initially sent my comment to, chimes in and says, yeah, basically saying I've already muted this guy. He's he's just, you all should just do the same. Don't talk to him or engage him or anything, which, I thought was a bit hurtful. I mean, this is a guy whose work I like, who I admire, just because of the work he's done, not, because of his political views. And he's basically saying to me, your opinion doesn't matter, we should just block you and whatnot. Ah, unstable area, I have arrived at you at last. And, that is kind of hurtful. It's kind of sad and hurtful when somebody does that to you. And so, my initial response was, I went to, I knew that was going to happen. My initial response was, after thinking about it a while, I said, okay, I should probably just stop following this guy. He has such disdain and disrespect for me just because I hold a different view from him. Discovered that he had already blocked me, which, was one of those moments where I'm kind of like, wait a second. It's one of those moments where you kind of want to say, you can't fire me, I quit type moments. And, I sincerely hope, I don't think this will ever happen, but I sincerely hope that Twitter will have a button that says, you can't block me, I'm unsubscribing from you. But sadly they don't, and probably never will. Life is hard that way. Regardless, I felt like this was kind of an overreaction, and essentially it was pretty much, my same feeling about Brexit. It's kind of an well, let me start that over. It was just, I felt it was an overreaction on his part, and, kind of inappropriate to me. But the end result was that he had actually changed my views on Brexit. I still don't know very much about it, but I am now fervently in favor of Brexit because of how this guy treated me. Yep, I can't drive. I'm trying to drive here, people! Okay. Oop, I ran into an area, and yeah. Ugh. Don't you hate it? You're just trying to drive, and you suddenly get attacked by people. Regardless, he completely changed my mind about Brexit, but not in the way I think he would have wanted to change my mind about Brexit. And that kind of brings me to a point, something I learned a long time ago, and this is, I think, true not just of politics, but of just about everything. Which is, even if you are 100% right about something, the way you present it to someone who doesn't know anything about it, does make a difference. Because, this guy basically, couldn't stand me challenging his viewpoints on something, on Brexit, on the whole issue and problem, just because he couldn't stand that challenge. He basically made me, basically made me go the other way. I now fully support Brexit because of how somebody who was against Brexit treated me. And that's true all around. That's how life works. Tends to work out. So anyway, that was like the start of my week. Oh, this whole Brexit thingamabopper. So we're gonna move on to kind of my reactions to like the major political things going on. We'll start with impeachment. The impeachment of Trump is finally over. I've been trying to be a good citizen, so I have been watching impeachment, and just trying to give as much information as possible as I can. And honestly, it's incredibly boring. It's seriously a very boring process. And I'm very happy it's over now because I get past the boringness. But there was an interesting thing that happened. And I kind of have to go back a couple of years to help explain my position. But in 2012, I voted for and supported Mitt Romney, in his run for president of the United States. And, you know, I've always been quite supportive of him, and so on, but the media was horrible to him. Now, the media tends to be hard on Republicans and, you know, people like that. You know, they tend to get hit hard by the media anyway, but, you know, in many cases with Mitt Romney, it was so out there and inappropriate that it's crazy. He made a comment. You may or may not remember this, but he made a comment about people talk about his hiring practices and you know, whether he's giving women a fair chance, a fair shake. And his response was that he talked about giving women a fair shake, that he has file folders full of, like, the applications for women, and so on. The way he phrases it's like we have, you know, that are the files full of women, basically. Now, it was super obvious to anyone who'd seen that clip that he was talking about applicants and applications and so on to it, but the media blew that all out of proportions and said, you know, called him just like he's a horribly sexist person and he has pictures of women in files, and it was like such a ridiculous charge, but they ran with it and they just treated him like dirt. Now, Romney's I think the only Republican to vote against Trump for impeachment on one of the charges of impeachment. And he explained his decision. It was, for him, a hard decision, but he honestly believed that what he was doing is right. He had, you know, supported it. He had prayed about it. It was, you know, for him, it was, I think, a very hard decision to make. Now, I personally don't agree with the decision he made, but that's me. But I honestly believe he should have the right to make that decision and to go with his own gut and his own feeling. I don't think it was a political decision, and I don't think it was to curry favor with one side or another. But at the moment, the people who really treated him like dirt in 2012 are, like, praising him up and down because he dared stand up against that horrible monster Trump. And meanwhile, a lot of Republicans are giving him a hard time because, oh my gosh, he went against Trump. You know, and I think both points of view, I think both reactions are inappropriate. I'll just leave it at that. I think he's, you know, I think he went out, he made the decision that he felt was best, and he went with it. I see no reason to kind of doubt the veracity of him having trouble, you know, well, him just, you know, agonizing over this decision. I see no reason why he didn't, I think it was a hard decision for him, and, you know, I respect that he made the decision even if I don't agree with it. And I think it's kind of ridiculous how both sides have kind of had this reaction to it. One for, one against, when, you know, he made the decision, and, you know, let him have made that decision. Don't give him a hard time because it's not the decision you would make. And don't praise him when you know, unfairly condemned him, you know, just a few years ago. So that's my take on that. Let's see, is there a leap of faith here? Ah, crap. So, yep. That's my little take on that, the whole Romney situation. And, yep. So, I'm going to move on to kind of this. So that's actually why it emphasized to me that why I'm independent, which was, you know, I can disagree with somebody's decision, but without condemning them because it doesn't support my views or my side or my whatever. And I fervently believe in that. So, the final little thing of the week was the State of the Union address, which, if you saw it, and I'm going to go back to this whole, independent thing, basically, with this, because it seems to me the reactions to it were very, very bizarre. So, Nancy Pelosi, in particular, I think was quite inappropriate in her actions. She I don't know why that person's mad at me, but she basically ripped up the speech after it was over. Her copy of the speech she ripped up. Now, which I think was highly inappropriate, regardless of which side you take. I also think it's probably inappropriate that Trump didn't shake her hand when she offered her hand at the beginning, but I also think her introduction of him went against the how the president is normally introduced at the State of the Union, so, you know, I think it's a question of both sides, you know, being fairly inappropriate in both ways. With Trump, you kind of expect him to be inappropriate. With Pelosi, you know, she's supposed to be this, you know, great stateswoman, so it's always a little more shocking with her, because it's like, why is she being as inappropriate as Trump is? That seems not good. And yeah, and anyway, it's like I said, it goes back to this kind of, this is why I'm independent. It's because of things like this. It's with Trump. Let's be fair. There is a lot to criticize about Trump. I mean, you know, he does things very differently. He can be very crass, very crude in the way he expresses things, the way things, you know, he presents and expresses his views and so on in a very crass way, oftentimes. Name calling, all that stuff. He's a very, he can be very inappropriate. But, and this is my question on this is, does that give you the same leeway to be inappropriate, just as inappropriate as he is? And honestly, you know, the way she acted, the way she treated him is, I personally think is a bit worse than the way he treated his actions and so on. I'm trying to describe this. She has been in politics a lot longer than he has, and she should know the most appropriate actions and the way to act and behave. Trump, I can kind of say, well, he hasn't been in politics very long. You know, I can give him a bit of leeway in that regard because, you know, he may be experienced in a lot of things he's not experienced in politics. And the thing, so, you know, when someone who is a politician behaves inappropriately, that's very different than when someone who's still pretty new to politics behaves inappropriately. It's, you know, there should be a decorum. They should learn and should be able to figure out how to behave in a better fashion. So, it's my take on that. And, you know, I'm gonna say this, and this goes back to my whole, this is why I'm independent, is that, you know, there's a lot of reasons to be upset with Trump. It's very easy to be upset. He's done a lot of inappropriate stuff as president, as all this stuff. There's a lot of reasons for you to just kind of not like Trump, but he's also done stuff that has been, you know, quite good and quite appropriate. And when you're so upset at Trump that, you know, when he's honoring Americans who have died, when he's honoring people who have overcome great, just terrible things in their lives, and they're being honored at the State of the Union, and you can't even stand up because you don't like Trump, you don't like who... Actually, it transcends Trump. If you don't like who the president is so much that you can't, you know, honor people he honors in the State of the Union address, then I think it's become a personal problem. That's a personal problem as opposed to, you know, just a political difference. And I think people, you know, should take a step back from politics, remove kind of personality from politics, and just kind of take a hard look. You know, are you reacting this way because you don't personally like the person, or are you reacting this way because it's against your political beliefs? And I think, you know, regardless of whatever your political beliefs are, you should. That's something you should take a look at and you should consider. Oh, everybody's seen me when I accidentally entered Blighter territory now. Okay, gonna try and escape. Escape! Flee! So, regardless of all that, that's my whole take on, you know, this entire week has just been here and reminded me why I'm personally independent. Why I try to avoid a lot of these back and forths. You know, I try to take a look at something and look at something based not on my own affiliations and not base it on whether I like a person, a politician, or a person or not, but on what I think about the ideas expressed and what I think about what's going on. And so in that way I can look at Trump and say, I don't like that he did this, and this, but I can also look at him and say, but you know, I did like that he did this, and this. And so, you know, it's, at least for me, this is kind of the best way to look at things, to say, well, you know, I don't like, you know, in this personal election, for example, I don't like the options offered by, you know, the Republicans in this particular lesson. Let's look at the Democrats. And it's like, oh, I actually like some of the Democratic options here. Here, I'll go with Democrat this time around. Or vice versa. I'll go with Republicans this time around because I don't like what the Democrats are doing. And I think, you know, at least for me, that's really the only way to approach politics is to kind of take a look and see, is this a good idea? Is this going to work or not? And kind of leave it at that. So, anyway, that was my quick look of the last few weeks and kind of why I've come back to, you know, why it was reaffirmed in my mind why I'm independent and why I'm very proud to be independent in these regards. And you know what? I'm just going to say this. I chose Assassin's Creed Syndicate to convey this message because, you know, I think Evie and Jacob are both, their actions, their thought processes in this game represents kind of how I view things. They were very much against the Templars. They are throughout the entire games, but they also disagree with how the assassins are handling things in London, and so one of the first things they do in the game is basically disobey a direct order from the assassins and come to London to help defend it against the Templars. And that's how I view kind of the independence things. I don't have to agree with one side, but I also don't have to agree with the other side on the same issue. I can find a middle ground. I can find kind of that independent moment and voice. So anyway, that's the video. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe if you liked it, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.